I turned this empty terrarium into a poison dart frog vivarium. It even comes complete with its own water feature and self-draining pond. I'll link all the materials used in the description. I started by applying some clear aquarium-safe silicone to all the seams of the terrarium, just to be sure that it was watertight. Next, I measured out the mesh screen portion of the back of the terrarium and cut out a piece of acrylic glass to match. Which I attached using clear silicone. This was to prevent airflow and retain humidity. I set a small fan inside of the terrarium to help the silicone cure a little faster. Plastic grid divider will be the foundation of my false bottom, or in other words, my drainage layer. For the water feature, I also had a small submersible pump. The first step was to place it where the water feature will go, so I could build a tower using the aquarium divider grid. I used a hot glue gun to put it all together and attached it to the terrarium using aquarium-safe clear silicone. The second layer consists of a sheet of aquarium filter foam. I also laid down a sheet of Josh's Frog substrate layer. I also sprinkled down some activated aquarium carbon. I had the foundation set, but now I had to figure out my water feature. I had this really cool piece of dragonstone that I knew I wanted to use. This rock I particularly liked. The way that it had an indentation was ideal for a self-draining little pond. The only problem was I had no idea how to get the water to drain in there properly, or even how I wanted it to look, and so I tinkered with it for several nights, and it became the bane of my existence for some time. But eventually I had to go for it. I decided to cut back some of the aquarium foam and make a nice indentation. That way the water would drain easier and keep it off the seams of the terrarium. I also placed down some more aquarium divider grid as support beams as my foundation for the water feature. I also switched to black aquarium safe silicone as it's more aesthetically pleasing. I also finally had the waterfall's final design, or close to it, I should say. I used black lava rock to hide the imperfections of the seams. I used some old pre-workout and protein cups as little pools for my water feature. This would be my collection points from where I would trail the water off into the directions I wanted. I also placed 2 pieces of wood. One would be part of the water feature and another would act as a natural looking cave. It just needed a little bit of trimming first. Perfect. I also built some makeshift support beams for behind the cave using the aquarium grid divider. I wanted to make sure that the water didn't drain all the way across the floor of my little jungle, so I went ahead and built a makeshift barrier using aquarium silicone as well as lava rock and just tidied up the general drainage area of the waterfall. In order to make sure that my expanding spray foam would stick to the glass, I scored it with some more black silicone. I also started adding some planters cups. I also finally got my lighting in the mail, so I didn't have to keep stealing the one from my existing Polydarium every morning, so my dart frogs in there will thank me. To my surprise, it was the perfect fit. It was almost as if it was made for this very tank. I was almost ready for my expanding spray foam, but I still needed to build up the background, which I did with some more aquarium foam, and as well as a couple more pre-workout cups for the water feature. I also noticed that my water wasn't holding the way I wanted it to in my shallow rock depression, so I went ahead and hollowed out that a little bit, make it fit. I grabbed a syringe and some distilled water and tested how the water would flow out of the pre-workout cups. I was ready for spray foam. You gotta shake it for 60 seconds and throw on a mask. I personally recommend some hardcore German dubstep for this. Oh yeah, party get up. While the foam was still wet, I added some pieces of cork bark to add some texture to the backdrop. Quick water flow test after the spray foam had cured. And then I set to work with my razor blade. I also fed in my tubing. I had to shave off all the shiny parts off the expanding foam to prep it for the cocoa peat and sphagnum moss. This took forever, so I switched back and forth for a couple days between working on this and the water feature. I prepared a brick of cocoa peat and mixed it with sphagnum moss. That would be the backdrop. I let the silicone cure and vacuumed off the excess. I also layered the bottom with Josh's Frog substrate, as well as some oak leaf litter. I also got my first set of plants. I sprinkled down some aquarium-safe fertilizer and planted the semi-aquatic plants near the base of the waterfall. I noticed my tank was starting to grow some mold, which is natural in the cycling process of a tank, but I would need to introduce some life. I did this in the form of some orange springtails. This is my Vivarium cleanup crew. They'll eat the frog waste, decomposing plant matter, as well as any mold. I was super excited to get my plant trimmings as well as my wet moss mix from frogdaddy.com. This is a highly recommended product, and the plants from there have always been fantastic. The wet moss mix consists of a variety of different mosses as well as microferns. You'll want to apply it all over the backdrop after mixing it good. I also planted all of my trimmings of the plants using some ADA aquarium safe fertilizer as well as Josh's Frog substrate. I also used some sphagnum moss and sprinkled some crushed ADA on top of that to give them a good head start. After just 2 days, I started to see the first signs of moss as well as microferns growing. Here's how it looks after just 4 days after planting. And here's a week. After 3 weeks, my little terrarium was its own little jungle, and I was ready to order some frogs, which, of course, I was getting from frogdaddy.com. Here's one last preview of the entire thing 1 month after planting. And finally, the main show, 2 Tinctorius azuris, which I got from frogdaddy.com. They came in great health, they're super vibrant, super active, and I couldn't be happier. Feel free to leave me any feedback or questions in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.